The storm came down like the sky itself had split open. Snow fell, so thick you couldn't see your own hands stretched out in front of you, and the wind screamed like something alive. Out on a lonely stretch of highway in Montana, 9 bikers, leather jackets, roaring Harleys, were stranded. Their bikes had frozen over, the engines dead, the gas useless. They were miles from the nearest town, with the temperature dropping fast. And that's when they saw the porch light. It flickered through the whiteout like a tiny beacon of mercy, a small wooden house, leaning slightly under the weight of the storm. They stumbled toward it, their boots crunching through the snow, each breath sharp as glass. When they knocked, none of them expected what waited on the other side. The door creaked open, and there she was, 5'4", wrapped in a faded flannel robe, with silver, gray hair tied back in a scarf and eyes as sharp as an eagle's. Her name was Ida Mae Johnson, though most folks around town called her Miss Etta. She was 74 years old and lived alone since her husband passed a decade earlier. "What you boys doing out there in God's fury?" she said, looking them over with both suspicion and concern. One of the bikers, giant with a beard down to his chest, said, "Malum, we're stranded. The bikes won't start, and we're freezing." Ida crossed her arms. "You mean to tell me 9 grown men thought they could outrun a Montana blizzard on motorcycles?" They exchanged awkward glances. The storm howled behind them. She sighed deeply, stepped aside, and said, "Well, don't just stand there letting the Lord's cold finish you off. Get in here before I change my mind." They filed in, dripping snow and steam, filling her tiny living room like a pack of grizzly bears in a dollhouse. The warmth of the fireplace hit them like heaven. Etta handed each man a blanket. Mismatched, faded, but clean. Then she started heating up soup on the stove. For the first hour, nobody spoke much. The men were used to people fearing them. Tattoos, leather vests with skull patches, the whole outlaw image. But Miss Etta wasn't afraid. She had seen too much life to be scared of men who just looked rough. "You boys hungry?" she asked. They nodded. "Well, you're in luck. I made gumbo yesterday, and I never waste food." The smell filled the house, spices, sausage, shrimp, and warmth. They ate like they hadn't seen food in a week. Between bites, Etta started asking questions. "So what kind of club y'all running? You don't look like no Bible study group." One of them chuckled nervously. "We're riders, ma'am. Hell's Angels." She raised an eyebrow. "Well, as long as you angels don't bring hell into my house, we'll get along just fine." The men laughed, a little embarrassed. It had been a long time since anyone had spoken to them like that, with humor, with respect, with authority. As the night dragged on, the storm worsened. Power went out, leaving only the flicker of firelight. Ida pulled out candles from a drawer and began humming an old gospel tune. The bikers sat around the fire, listening as her voice filled the room, rich, deep, and comforting. "Mom," one of them finally said, "you're a tough lady." She smiled. "You don't live 74 years in this world without learning how to fight the cold, both outside and in people's hearts." They stayed 3 days, 3 long, snow-choked days where the world outside turned into white silence. In that time, Etta fed them, shared stories about growing up in the South, raising 3 children alone after her husband died in the mines, and how faith and kindness had carried her through every storm. The men began chopping wood for her, fixing her fence, and even mending a leak in the roof. One of them, named Travis, found her old radio and repaired it so she could listen to her favorite gospel station again. By the time the roads cleared and the snow began to melt, the 9 bikers didn't want to leave. They stood by their bikes, ready to go, but none of them could quite find the words. Finally, their leader, Big Ray, spoke. "Miss Etta," he said, taking off his helmet, "we owe you more than we can ever repay. You didn't have to open that door. You didn't have to feed us or trust us. But you did." She smiled softly. "And about owing, son. Kindness ain't a debt. It's a seed. You plant it, it'll grow in somebody else." Ray's voice broke just a little. "Still, we're not leaving it at that. You ever need us, anything at all, you call. Doesn't matter when or where." She laughed. "Could 9 Hell's Angels possibly do for an old woman like me?" He handed her a patched, leather vest, one with the club's emblem on the back. "This," he said. Means your family. Anyone sees you wearing it, they'll know you're under our protection. Ida shook her head, tears glistened in her eyes. Lord have mercy, she whispered. Never thought I'd live to be an honorary outlaw. They rode off that morning, engines rumbling like thunder fading into the horizon. Years passed. Ida got older, her hair whiter, her steps slower. But every Christmas, without fail, 9 motorcycles would appear at her doorstep, sometimes with gifts, sometimes just to sit with her, drink coffee, and listen to her stories. They helped fix her house, brought groceries when she couldn't drive, and paid her medical bills when she fell ill. When she passed away at 86, the whole town showed up at her funeral, and among them were 9 men in black leather, standing solemnly by her coffin. After the preacher spoke, Big Ray stepped forward, his voice trembling. She saved us, he said. Not just from the cold, but from ourselves. Miss Ida showed us that even the hardest hearts can thaw with a little warmth. He laid her vest gently on her coffin. Once an angel, he said, angel. The wind outside was calm that day, the sky clear. And if you asked anyone there, they'd tell you. They could almost hear Ida's voice on that wind, humming her old gospel tune, proud of the seeds she'd planted that had grown into something strong, fierce, and good. Moral of the story, kindness costs nothing, but it can change everything. One act of compassion in a storm can melt the frost in a heart, and sometimes the people you least expect to save you end up being the ones you save the most.